So Valve just had another leak. A brand new device, codenamed Fremont, popped up in benchmarks this week. It's got everyone buzzing. Now, we've known about Project Fremont for quite a long time. The idea that we would have a set-top box, a console sitting in the living room that would run all of our Steam games. The question is, and it's a thing that I can't stop thinking about, it's what I've been thinking about all week as it relates to this story, who is this thing actually for? That's the big mystery. Now, don't get me wrong, I'm always excited about gaming. I'm always excited about innovation in the gaming space. And if another company wants to enter the console space, then I'm all for it. I was there when Xbox launched. I was there, I had one. I went to the launch event. I went to Project Natal for Microsoft. I'm excited for competition. I want to see competition in the space. But a big but here, a huge but. When you look at the numbers, when you look at what leaked, you can't help but ask yourself if this is something that has an audience, or if Valve is just throwing spaghetti at the wall again like they did with the Steam machines 10 years ago. And look, I know that might sound harsh when Steam is crushing it right now, and the Steam Deck is one of my favorite handhelds. I mean, ergonomically, emulation device, great device to be able to play my PC games, unbelievable storefront, great sales, great deals. But seriously, who is this for? So let's try to unpack this together if we can. I'm just going to sort of speak extemporaneously and think out loud here. And you don't need to get angry at me. I'm just sort of talking through who exactly is this for, and you guys can weigh in and let me know down below. So first of all, let's talk about the leak itself. This came out through a Geekbench score that an ex-user, sadly it's Bradley, caught and then posted. And the entry shows a device running under the codename Fremont. Now, that might sound like nothing, but the details are wild. It was running Windows 11 Pro, which right away tells you this is not the final operating system. Steam OS was not running on it, and we all know how much better Steam OS is to Windows. So there's no way Valve ships a new console running Windows. I mean, Gabe is on the record years ago when he launched the Steam machine about how much he pretty much hated Windows. I hate Windows with a passion. So that's not what they're going to do here. They're not going to release a Windows box. So this is almost certainly a testing rig by all accounts. But when you look at the internals, that's where things get really interesting. This isn't some handheld. This isn't some Steam Deck refresh. This looks like a box meant for your living room by all accounts, because inside the leaked specs show a custom AMD CPU, officially called the AMD 1772, part of the Hawk Point 2 family. It's a 6-core, 12-thread chip with a base clock of 3.2 gigahertz and boost speeds that can go all the way up to 4.8 gigahertz. It's also got 16 megabytes of L3 cache, 6 megabytes of L2. So to translate that into English, this is way more CPU horsepower than the Steam Deck OLED, nearly double that, in fact. And then you look at the graphics. The listing shows an AMD Radeon RX 7600 dedicated GPU, not integrated graphics, not a mobile chip. So a discrete desktop class RDNA 3 graphics card with around 28 to 32 compute units and 8 gigabytes of GDDR6 video memory. That's the kind of card that people are using right now in budget to mid-range gaming PCs to play modern games, at 1080p, at 1440p. So this isn't some tiny handheld chip. This is the real deal, stuffed inside a console-like box. Now, I was at Best Buy just today. Spent about an hour there, and I was just looking at PCs, trying to get a sense of prices, because I was interested in the specs and the prices on this Valve Fremont box versus what's currently for sale, sitting right out there on full display at a Best Buy. Similarly spec'd PCs, and you're looking at about $849 for a similarly spec'd PC. I mean, here's an example. This all-in-one CyberPower Gamer Master has an RX 7600, 8 gigabytes of GDDR6, 16 gigabytes of RAM, and 1 terabyte SSD. Again, $850. Or here's another example, one of the Moonlight PCs. Now this one's a refurbished model, but you get the idea. It's a custom mini ITX build, features an RX 7600, 8 gigabytes of GDDR6 as well, paired with a Ryzen 9 3900X, 16 gigabytes of DDR4, 1 terabyte SSD drive. For $829, again, this one's a refurbished model that I'm showing you here. Again, all over $800 for both of these similarly spec'd PCs. Now, to be clear, this test unit only had 8 gigs of DDR5 memory, which, let's be honest, there's no way that this is final. You don't ship a new console in 2025 with 8 gigs of RAM. That's placeholder stuff for a test bench, of course, or something. I don't know. Now, the retail version, if this ever ships, is going to have at least 16 gigabytes. It has to. Maybe even 32, which would be fascinating. And the performance numbers that would back that up. The leaked Geekbench scores had Fremont at about 2412 in single core and 7451 in multi-core. That's basically double the Steam Deck OLED, and it puts this thing right in line with Intel's Core i3 desktop chip. In other words, it's not a monster gaming PC by any stretch of the imagination, but plenty powerful for a console box. We'll see what the price comes in. So the PS5 Pro, for instance, has 16 gigabytes of GDDR6 plus an extra 2 gigabytes of R5 system RAM for simple background operating system things. So yeah, the performance looks legit, but again, I come back to my main question. Who is this for? If you're a hardcore PC gamer, you probably already have a rig that blows this away. You're probably rocking a 4070, maybe a 4080, maybe even a 4090, even higher than that. You can find them and afford them. You might have an ultra wide monitor, like I'm running a 4090 on the gaming PC that I have, and it's a few years old at this point. This was my old streaming PC for our studio, so it got downgraded. We bought a new one. Oh no, I'm sorry. No, I have a 4090 in the studio, and I've got a 3090 sitting right here. So that's the one that I play games on. So, but this was very expensive. So why would you buy a mid-range console that caps at around R6 7600 performance? If you're a console gamer, you've already got a PS5 or an Xbox Series X hooked up to your television. Both of those boxes deliver a clean living room experience with big exclusives, although less so these days when everything is an Xbox. But even so, are you really going to walk away from that PlayStation ecosystem to buy a Steam box? And if you're a casual gamer, is this thing plug and play enough for you? Now, Valve loves Linux and SteamOS, but even if they polish it to a shine, will families and casual gamers want to deal with something that doesn't feel like a console? Will you able to go into like a Linux desktop mode and tinker around in the back end like you can on a Steam Deck? Who knows? Will you need to get out a mouse and a keyboard and all of that? That's why I can't stop asking, who is this for? I love the idea of it. So let's now add in some competition here, because you can't look at Fremont in a vacuum. You have to compare it to what else is hitting the market or currently on the market. Let's start with Nintendo. The Switch 2 is out. It's already the biggest console launch of all time for Nintendo, even at the price point. $499 price point. Still the biggest selling launch of their career. And here's the thing, people know exactly who the Switch 2 is for. It's for families, it's for Nintendo fans, it's for anyone who loves portability with big first-party exclusives like Mario, Zelda, Pokemon, right? You're not getting Pokemon anywhere else. You're getting all of that on Nintendo. You're getting Mario, you're getting Mario Kart World, Donkey Kong Bonanza, played the heck out of that. Unbelievable game, but you're not getting that on a PC. And day one, you already know who that audience is. Valve's Fremont, though, we still don't know who it's targeting. So if Valve tries to go head-to-head with Nintendo on price and family, then they're gonna lose. Bottom line, they're going to lose because Nintendo owns that space. Now look at Sony. Sony PlayStation 5 Pro. 4K resolution, ray tracing, faster frame rates. It's Sony's answer for gamers who want the most, cutting-edge console experience without building out a PC. And again, you know exactly who the PS5 Pro is for. It's for people who want the best visuals in the living room, the exclusive titles on PlayStation, the big blockbusters, all on hardware that just works. It just works. If I want to sit down and play Elden Ring, I want to sit down and play I just finished playing Batman Arkham Knight for the first time, just works. No crashes, no problems. Fremont, though, with an RX 7600, that's not going to compete with the PS5 Pro on specs. That's mid-tier by comparison. So again, who is this for? And Sony just raised their prices, by the way. Sony increased PS5 prices across the board in the United States this week. $50 per model. The PS5 Digital Went from, by the way, this is the third time it's jumped up in price, or the second time? Yeah, it used to be $399, then it went to $449. Now it's $499 for the digital PS5. The PS5 standard went from $499 to $549. The PS5 Pro went from $699 to $749, although on Amazon you can actually still get it for $699. I don't know if like Amazon is keeping those prices artificially low for the moment, but yeah, it's $749 now for the PS5 Pro. So even at the highest level, the PS5 Pro, you're still under $800. Unless you add on a disk drive for $80, but still. And then there's Xbox. Microsoft is pivoting hard right now into Game Pass. Their strategy isn't even about the Xbox anymore. It's you can play it anywhere. It's a subscription service. Play wherever you want, on whatever device you want. Everything is an Xbox now. That's their lane. And that makes Fremont even more confusing, because if you're a casual gamer who just wants variety, Game Pass already gives you that on a cheap Series S, or even your smart TV now that's running Game Pass. Why would you need a Valve digital only box? Unless, Valve builds their own kind of subscription model on top of this, and that's one thing I've been thinking about a lot this week. How do you go toe-to-toe with Microsoft? How do you go toe-to-toe with Xbox? Subscription model with this box? And maybe that's the key here. A subscription model for Steam. I don't know. I'm just throwing it out there. So what do you end up with is this. Nintendo owns the family market within the Switch 2 and Switch 1. I mean, massive install base for the Switch 1. Sony owns the premium console space with the PS5 Pro and the huge still install base with the PS4 that's still out there. Microsoft owns the subscription model with Game Pass. And then there's Valve sliding in with a mid-range box. Again, possibly. This is all conjecture, right? This is just a Geekbench score. That's all we know. But they slide in with this mid-range box powered by a custom 6-core AMD CPU and RX 7600 GPU. So who is this for? It doesn't slot neatly into any of those categories, which is both interesting and risky. Now let's talk strategy though, because I think this is fascinating, because this is not Valve's first rodeo here. They tried this before with the Steam machine. And of course it was a disaster. Third-party partners building all kinds of different boxes with no standard, no identity, all running Linux back then when Proton wasn't available. I remember, at the time testing out the Alienware, Alienware had a Valve, had a Steam machine. Zotac had a Steam machine. All kinds of companies signed on to create mini PCs that were certified as powered by Steam OS. Prices were high, support was weak. It was like buying a Dell computer back in the day. There was no support. Gamers basically ignored them altogether. Despite Steam's enormous user base, this is the key, over 125 million users at the time. That was then, 10 years ago. But few people embraced this new console at all. Valve did not release official sales figures, but estimates suggest that under 500,000 Steam machines were sold in the first 7 months. With a built-in user base of Steam, 125 million. Very strange, right? 125 million people, but only 500,000 bought them? But we need to look at this history. I think it's important because PC gamers totally rejected the Steam machine. They didn't want to have anything to do with it. But times are admittedly different now, because at the time, Linux-based Steam OS was arguably the Achilles heel of the whole thing, of the Steam machine. Because right from launch, because they moved away from Windows, Valve immediately restricted the game library available to Steam machine owners. So just so you understand, at the time, Steam had tens of thousands of games for Windows, and the Linux-compatible catalog of games was tiny. It was a tiny fraction of that. So most AAA games didn't even play on the thing, didn't support Linux. You couldn't play the big titles. Developers didn't want to waste their time porting it to Linux for the promise of this Valve box that no one was buying. They didn't want to waste their development time on that, so it failed. I mean, there were tons of issues. There were tons of other issues too, like performance. It was really bad. So it had poor performance and it had a poor catalog of games. But that was then. And now we have the Steam Deck, and that changed everything. So suddenly Valve has a hit on its hands, right? The Steam Deck. Suddenly Proton and SteamOS are a proven quantity, right? You can run Windows games on SteamOS using Proton, that compatibility layer, translation layer. Suddenly Valve had credibility in hardware. It's one of my favorite gaming handhelds. That's the context here. This time around, maybe they earned the right to try again. They've cracked the nut, so to speak. So if Fremont is real and it's coming, then what are the opportunities here? First off, if I'm thinking about this, Steam is the biggest PC library on Earth. It's massive. Consoles can't compete with the number of PC gamers running Steam. So with this Valve box, you don't need to build a Windows PC. You don't need to mess around with drivers. You just buy the box, you plug it into your TV, you've got instant access to thousands of games. Your whole library is there. It's huge. Second, Valve can afford to undercut, right? They make a lot of money. They make a lot of money on software sales, taking 30% of every game sale. So if they can get this thing into living rooms for a decent price, say $400 to $500, maybe people might bite. Remember, the appeal of the Steam Deck is all of your PC games in your hand at an affordable price. The thing is damn affordable. Third, the timing is good. The PS5, Xbox Series are both several years old now. Gamers are open to alternatives. And cloud gaming, to be honest, it sucks. Still sucks. So that creates an opening, but I'm not sure that opening is big enough yet. Or maybe it doesn't even have to be that big at all. After all, Steam Deck, it's only sold about 5 million units total in its 3-year history. The Switch 2 sold that amount in just a few weeks. But then we get to the real challenges here. Number one, Microsoft already has Game Pass. It's everywhere. PC, console, cloud, mobile, even smart TVs. Maybe we'll even see Game Pass coming to the PlayStation. Can you imagine? Competing with that ecosystem is brutal right now. Number two, NVIDIA tried this with the NVIDIA Shield, you recall. It never really caught on at all. And number three, if Fremont is basically an RX 7600 box, you're looking, at a strong 1080p, decent 1440p gaming, but you're not touching true 4K. So that could be a deal breaker for a living room console in 2025. I know I would have been, if the Switch 2 launched and it didn't have 4K, because there were some people wondering, is this thing gonna be 4K? That would have been a deal breaker for me, 100%. So the biggest challenge here is convincing people that they actually need another console at all, because right now the market is saturated. Xbox, PlayStation, Switch, Steam Deck. I mean, we've talked about the console numbers here in the past. The market is not growing. If anything, it's fading. Consoles are fading. So do we really need one more console? But the way I see it, maybe it's like this. Maybe it's kind of like the ultimate third-party candidate. More than 100 million Americans don't vote. Can you believe that? 100 million Americans don't vote? So there's a huge audience for some third-party candidate to come along and grab those 100 million votes, destroy the uniparty, Democrats and Republicans, who are basically one big corrupt party, save for a few little heroes out there like Thomas Massey and Rand Paul. Maybe the Valve console box is like that. It opens up an entirely new market of people who aren't console gamers at all, maybe aren't really hardcore PC gamers and streamers like Asmongold, who sits at a desk and plays PC games and streams. Maybe there's like an audience that's unlike any of those people. Maybe they find an entirely new audience, those 100 million that are out there, like just waiting for a console to come down out of the sky. But I just don't see it. I just don't see it happening. As Jerry Seinfeld might say, who are these people? Who are these people that are going to buy this console? I don't know.
Who are these people?
So what's the community saying about this? I mean, Reddit's got some interesting takes. I mean, you know Reddit, of course. Some people are hyped about it, saying this could easily rival a PS5 for 1080p performance, hitting 60 to 100 frames per second in most games. Maybe with those specs, if that checks out, perhaps. But others are more skeptical, saying this is just a dev kit. Don't get too excited about it. Don't even read into this at all. Valve experiments with hardware all the time. It's just a Geekbench score after all. Then you've got the dreamers speculating that this hardware might also show up in a future Steam Deck handheld, with an iGPU re-enabled. That would be wild, because it would mean Valve is building one chip that powers both a living room experience and a portable gaming experience I could plug into a dock or something like that. Maybe, that would be great. It's that powerful? And I could plug it into the TV and take it with me? Ooh. That's like Apple with M4 chips. You'll find it in an iPad and an iPhone and a desktop Mac. For Apple, it was a huge success. I mean, that's how you start building a full ecosystem here. That's how you start competing with Sony and Microsoft for real. So let's bring this all together. I'm thinking extemporaneously here about all of these different ideas. But I mean, I'll ask you guys, what do you think? I think Fremont is real. I think this is Valve experimenting with a proper console box. I think they've learned from the Steam Machine disaster. And this time they've got the software ecosystem to back it up. But I still don't know if they've answered the most important question. Who is this thing for?
Who are these people?
Maybe it's for me. Maybe it's for you. Bill from the Nerd Nest just built a whole Steam console and maxed it out with great specs. His specs are far better than these leaks. And I'm kind of like him. I'd love a box that I can plug into my TV with no controller, no mouse, no keyboard, and all of my Steam games. It could be for the gamers who love a PC but don't want a big desktop tower in their living room with a lot of fan noise. The ones who just want the Steam library on the couch with a controller in your hand. And that's the obvious audience here, but will it extend beyond that niche? It's not clear. And PC gamers, I mean, they love to tweak things, they love to tinker. Would they buy this box when they can just tinker with a PC again? I don't know. I'm thoroughly confused by it. Because if Valve nails the price, let's say $400 and $500, and it just works, this could be a killer product. But if they overreach and it's $900, if it's confusing, if it feels like a half step, then it's gonna be a Steam machine all over again. And 2 years from now, we're gonna be looking back and saying, remember that Valve console that never went anywhere? What a waste. So at the end of the day, I'm intrigued. Fremont represents Valve deciding whether they're serious about the living room, not just handhelds, not just PCs, but actually competing for space under your TV. The question isn't whether they can build it, they clearly can. The question is whether we actually want it. Who's it for? So again, I'll leave you with this. Who is this really for? Hardcore PC gamers already have rigs, console gamers already have their boxes, casual gamers want simple. Nintendo's got Switch 2 locked down. Sony's got PS5 Pro, Microsoft's got Game Pass. So where does that leave Fremont? Maybe the answer is you and me. Maybe the answer is nobody. And maybe Valve is willing to actually roll the dice to find out. I mean, heck, Amazon rolled the dice with something called Alexa. So guys, what do you think? Drop me some comments below. Are you buying Valve's next console if this leak turns out to be the real deal? Or, is this just another Steam machine waiting to happen? Let me know down below, and if I brought you any value at all, please consider subscribing. Thank you so much for this discussion, and we'll see you next time, everyone.